before I'm getting ahead of myself here, one last thing I want to talk about, and I guess this will apply for the Wisconsin game as well. It's something I hope we don't see. Eric, I know you're not a big Evan Smotrycz fan, and when we were at the game, Dan was harassing you with anything that he did. Dan would lean over behind Ben and have to drop a comment to you. That's how he is.
Well, let me introduce my new theory. I've been like coming up with a mathematical equation for what Smo does to the offense when he comes in, and I'm going to hear the snowball effect. When he gets in, I just feel like the offense comes to a halt. And like I've said before, sometimes it feels like 5-on-4. So yeah, the past couple of games he's put in some admirable lines comparatively. Once you lower your standards, you can say, oh yeah, he did all right. But what do you have? He had 2 points, 3 fouls. I don't think he made anything from the field. Missed a few threes. Looked a little uncertain. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally an Evan Smotrycz hater. He played Division I basketball. I did not. So he will always have that over me. So I'm just a talking head saying why he sucks. But, haters going to hate, I guess. And then I'm definitely a Smotrycz hater. I don't know what Dan sees in him. But once the snowball effect happens, Terps are in trouble. And I just wish he'd get less minutes. But that's just me.
Well, I know you're not a fan, but I know you cannot be a fan of. And I noticed it too. I was kind of taken back by it, honestly. On Thursday, when I don't remember what point in the game it was, but Smotrycz was subbed out for DeMonte Dodd, and the student section cheered profusely for it. And
yes,
I thought that was total. We didn't talk about it at the time because I was a little bit. I just didn't really grasp what was going on. But later on, I realized what happened, and like totally uncalled for. I think. I mean, honestly, when he had the ball, I'm pretty sure there were small groups of the student section booing, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I really thought I heard that. Like, did you hear that? I don't know if I could speak directly to the booing, but, I mean, that applause
for
him leaving the floor was...
Yeah, that definitely happened, but I thought I heard booing. Maybe that's just me being hopeful, but... I mean, you can just type, and I've done this before, like, you just type in his name during a game, like, on Twitter, and that dude's getting blown up. But, I mean, whatever, it is what it is.
I think that people are extremely overcritical of him.
I agree.
Like, I wasn't at the Nebraska game, but just from being at other games previously this year, I think people in the stands tend to, like, forget that he knows how to play basketball. Like, I can remember at times during some games, people just get angry, like, if he dribbles the ball, like, over, like, the half-court line, just so they, like, can avoid, like, a 10-second call. Like, what are you doing, dribbling? Or, like... Or like if he takes a wide-open three and misses it, people get so upset. But then 10 minutes later in the game, if he passes up a wide-open three to, like, drive into, people are like, why didn't you just shoot it? Like, people are so overly critical of him. And, I mean, I'm not a big fan of him either. I think it'd be hard to give him less minutes just because I think his is almost a necessity. Like, he has to play, especially against, like, Wisconsin. I think he's going to play a lot just because he matches up a little better with a team like that. I mean, he's not a great player, but he's not terrible. I mean, he's not as bad as people make him out to be. Like,
well, how about this? Do you think that? I mean, I might be inclined to say he is Maryland's fourth best player, probably their fifth. But I think you could make an argument that behind the big three, he could be the fourth best player on the team. Which right now,
I'd go Wiley and Nickens.
No, you can't say Dion Wiley. He plays 5 minutes a game.
That's on Turge, but I mean, Dion Wiley's a freshman, and I've seen more from him than Smo's a senior. Like, this is the complete maturation of his game. This is the final product. Whereas Wiley's in the very, very tip of the iceberg of his career. Smo's better, right now, but it's just like, I don't know. I give me Wiley and Nickens any day to build than Smo, who's already out the door.
I think that's true. I think if you're going off potential,
yeah, for sure,
that's definitely the case. But I think Smotrycz brings a lot more to the team when he's playing than Wiley does for sure. Maybe even a little more than Nickens does. The one thing that's good about Nickens is he just seems to always hit a big three in every single game. He just always hits like a three in a good spot, and I love that about him. I love Nickens. I think he's going to be just a monster. The thing that bothers me about Smotrycz is he's just he just has a terrible attitude. Like he just is never. He's so out of the game, and he just seems like he just has no energy or no enthusiasm, which I'd find really troubling. And that's why I think people don't really take to him very well. I think if he was more of like a hustle guy and, he made the mistakes that he does make, people would be more accepting. Because if you look at somebody like John Graham,
that's a great comparison.
He really makes a lot of bonehead plays too, just like Smotrycz does. And obviously, I think he kind of knows his limitations maybe a little better than Smotrycz does. Smotrycz tends to try some things that maybe he shouldn't. But people love John Graham just because he has this perception as being, this all-around hustle player, and he's like really about the team, and he's really into the games, tons of energy. And Smotrycz just is never going to be that kind of guy. He just doesn't bring the energy when he comes in. He just has this, flat-faced look all the time. And I think that's really where this bad rap comes from, is people just don't really like him as a guy, and then he makes dumb decisions on the basketball court, and it's just compounded into like this massive booing or whatever it may be.
In Evan's defense, I think, Mill, again, I agree completely with you, and I think most of it has to do with the bars that we set for each of these players.
Sure.
I guess for me, with Smotrycz, I set the bar really high because when we were in the ACC, I'm hearing that a guy's coming from Michigan. He's sitting out a year. I'm reading the message boards constantly and reading about how this guy is going to chip in immediately. His first game for Maryland, I think, was against UConn up in Brooklyn, and he had a really, really good game. So I'm thinking this guy's the real deal. And just for the minutes that he's getting, and I'm thinking, oh, dude, like this guy was not what I was expecting. Whereas on the flip side, my bar for John Graham is like 3 inches off the ground. And if he scores 4 points, I'm like, oh, look at you go, John. I'm like, oh, John, what a great hustler. Just like you said, Mel, like I'm totally one of those people. Like if John Graham pulls down an offensive board, puts it back, I'm like, oh, John, that's great. If Smotrycz does that, I'm like, well, Jesus, Smotrycz, about time. So I think a lot of it has to do with the bars that we set, and I guess mine's really high on Evan, and I'm trying to lower it just so I can stop hating on the dude so much. But yeah, I think that's it. It's just the expectations we set for each of these players. I mean, I had no expectation coming from John Graham, a Penn State transfer. Like, okay, great, right. The bottom of the Big Ten. So anytime he does something good, I'm pleasantly surprised. So it's just the standards the bar that we set for each of these guys.
Yeah, and to go along with that, I think one of the more puzzling things, he was such an effective player last year. I'm just looking at his season last season. He shot over 40%. He averaged 11 points. He averaged 6 rebounds a game. I mean, he was just such a more important figure on the team last year than he is this year. And he's really, Smotrycz.
Yeah,
he's like regressed incredibly. And I don't know if that's due to kind of the injury that he had, or he just, he hasn't been able to work on his game as much or practice as much because of that injury. But I mean, he's really not even the same player as he was last year, which is kind of funky.
And again, in Smotricz's defense, Mill, you brought up Smo's body language. So there's kind of two sides of it. Look at Melo Trimble and look at Smo. There are some parallels there, except completely different results. So Melo is this calm guy, doesn't let anything bother him, kind of goes with the flow. But he puts up double-doubles, or he'll put up, double-digit in points and just steals the show. Smotrycz, like you said, again, very calm body language, doesn't look like he's completely fired up. Like, you don't see Melo clapping and slamming the ground. You don't see Smotrycz doing that either. But the big difference is when Smotrycz gets the ball, he's indecisive. He's turning it over. When he's driving through the lane, it's hilarious to watch because he's such an unathletic-looking dude. So there's just two completely different results. So then everyone gets, like me, everyone will get on Evan like, oh, dude, you look like you're playing so lazy out there. But then, like, we'll love Melo and we'll use words like composed and mature. And look at Melo, he doesn't let anything get to him because he's going out there and producing. So it's similar body language, two completely different results.